Okay, so this is part the Waterveil deck. As you can see, we have 25 lands, we have 7 that produce actual just colorless, and 8 forests, 6 islands, 4 lumbering falls, and then 2 Yavimaya coasts for hybrid colors. As you can see, the deck is kind of like 2.5 colors. It's not technically 2 colors since we're running so many colorless lands. But usually you don't have too much of a problem with that since we are ramping, and usually when we ramp we color fix. Our ramping spells we have 4 Battleclaw Mystics, 3 Nissa's Pilgrimages, 2 Vegetations, and Renewal. Pilgrimage doesn't really fix your mana too well, I guess, because it only gets forests, but Battleclaw Mystics, Vegetation, Renewal fix it very well. And usually with your vegetations and your renewals, you want to get islands, since pilgrimage will only get forests. We're doing nothing on turn 1. We start on turn 2 with either a Jace or a Rattleclaw Mystic. I never really lead with a face-up Dim Protector unless I really have to, like playing against Tarka Red, and you need to have shields up right away. You can do that. Then we can follow up by like a turn 3 plays usually to hopefully ramp up into our 6 drops or even our 8 drops. Our curve with this deck stops at Ugin, as you can see. It doesn't stop at Ulamog or Kozilek, it just stops at 8. So this makes the deck have better draws, and also when you mulligan, you won't have to worry too much about drawing multiple Ulamogs or Kozilek and basically just mulliganing again. So the plan of this deck is to play out your hand. You want to ramp up, and you want to try to ramp up into usually a Awakened Parth Waterveil or an Ugin. Ugin doesn't beat most decks like it used to. Originally, Ugin would you just drop Ugin, you can take over the game by just 1 Ugin. But nowadays it's kind of harder because of Oath. There's more colorless creatures in play, or more decks are playing them. But against some decks like Abzan or even Rally or even Mardu Green, Ugin will still threaten to take over the game by himself. So let's talk about some of the synergies in the deck. As you can see, Jace doesn't have too much synergy with at first glance you see that he might not have too much synergy because there's no fetches here. So you have to keep tapping him. But luckily with Pilgrimage, if you actually have Spell Mastery, you get 3 forests, so Jace becomes just like draw a card, because all you're going to discard is a land anyway, so it's not that big a deal. Jace also flips much quicker with Oath of Jace, since you discard 2 cards with Oath of Jace. It also works with the flip side, so if Jace is flip, you discry, obviously. Jace also works particularly well with Dim Protector, because obviously whatever you discard you can just buy it back later with Dim Protector. So Jace may not seem like insane in this deck, but he actually does gain you actual card advantage in the long run. Our next card we're going to talk about is Dim Protector. Dim Protector is just a value card. It also helps you fight against duress effects, and just like decks are trying to 1-for-1 you, so you can you can even actually lock them out late in the game with Dim Protector and Fog. You can basically just Fog, morph Dim Protector, unmorph it, cast Fog again, which can usually buy you enough time to cast that Dig Through Time or that Ugin or that Awakened Parth Waterveil, whatever you need. As you can see, there's not many new cards in this deck. The only new cards main deck that we have are Oath of Jace. I originally started with just 1 of these cards, but actually Oath of Jace has been doing really well for me. Like I said, it helps Jace Vryn's Prodigy flip quicker. It also gets you more fuel for Dim Protector. It also turns Spell Mastery on for Pilgrimage, and also turns on Dig Through Time much quicker. And sometimes with ramp decks, you'll get these hands where you just have all these ramp spells or all these lands, and you have nothing else to do with them. So Oath of Jace actually will help you by fueling your hand. So you draw non-land cards, obviously, and discard the lands. And also, as I said before, it fuels Dig Through Time by putting 2 cards in the graveyard. But if you have if you have an Oath of Jace out already, it will put 3 cards in the graveyard, so your deck becomes even stronger. The really like as the quote unquote best draw for this deck is to have a Radical Mystic into a Veggies into a Renewal into Parth Waterveil Awakened, and that's obviously like very few decks can actually fight that. I feel like any game where I'm able to play Radical Mystic into Vegetation, it's obviously very good. But then you might ask why we're only running 2 Vegetations, and that's because I want to not like be totally devoted to ramp, so that our hands don't always clunk up with ramp, and then not have anything cast. By splitting them like this, you have way more options during your turns, and way less chance to just draw air. Again, and then we have the sideboard. Let's move over here. This deck is kind of like a combo deck because once it starts taking extra turns, or once it casts Ugin, you can just do so like you turn the corner really hard. Like once you start winning, you really start winning. Like your opponent will die in about 1 or 2 turns, or even 3 turns, but all those turns will be yours. So once this deck turns the curve, it will win. It usually wins out of nowhere, and that's why it's kind of like a combo. Like that's what's kind of like a combo deck. You really don't want to board in too much. Usually, like let's say against Rally or Mardu Green or Jeskai Black, I usually just bring in 2 Dispels and a Talent of the Telepath. Talent of the Telepath is actually really good against the Jeskai Black decks, or any deck that has like Treasure Cruise or Dig Through Time. If you get Spell Mastery, you basically just mill them for 7, and then you get to cast 2 instant sorcery cards that are revealed this way. So even if you just hit 1 Dig Through Time, it's great. If you read the bones, that's fine. So this card's actually really pretty good against them. I won't say really good, because if it's really good, I'll play more. But it's a nice one to have. But again, that's all I bring in. I just bring in 2 Dispels and a Talent. Disdainful Stroke is usually only for ramp decks, other ramp decks, because that's basically your worst matchup. I don't even bring these against like Abzan decks or Mardu decks. I'm playing against Mardu and Abzan just to Ugin them, so I don't want to even have Disdainful Stroke in my deck. Bane of Balageds are just a great switch for Ugins when the opposing deck has a lot of colorless creatures, basically like a bunch of Hangerbacks, a bunch of other Thopters or Thought-Knot Seers or what have you, or even against ramp decks. Like against ramp decks, if you resolve Ugin, they don't really care because they have Ulamog and World Breaker. So actually having Bane is much better than Ugin in the ramp matchups. Thought-Knot Seer is also good in the ramp matchups or the aggro matchups. Spatial Contortion, good against Mantis Strider and Dagger matchups. I don't bring in Contortion against decks that just have Jace. I don't think it's really worth it, because like your end game is much stronger than theirs. So I don't want to play the 1-1 game because they have Painful Truths and Treasure Cruise, and you don't. So I don't like doing that. The only time you like switch up the deck entirely, like a lot, is when you're playing against let's say Tarka Red, because you want to bring in your Spatial Contortions, your Thought-Knot Seers, your Advocates, and your Winds, and maybe even a Dispel or 2. Usually for that, I would cut I'd usually cut like a Ugin or 2, cut all the parts, and probably a Dig or 2, or like the cards you want to cut against aggro decks are the cards that don't really do anything, like that diddle too much. So like Oaths are good targets. Jace is a good target. Part is a good target, and Dig Through Time is a good target. And so is Ugin because he just costs so much. Like if you resolve him, usually win, but he still costs a lot. So usually I would cut some number of those cards against the aggro deck, and that's the only deck that you would actually change a lot about your deck. Otherwise, you just try to ramp up, cast your Parth Waterveil Awaken or Ugin, and even even kill him with Planeswalkers. This deck is really sweet. It's actually, if I had a standard event to play in tomorrow, I would definitely play this deck. It's one of my favorite decks. Again, It didn't gain too much from Oath, but I still think it's a very powerful contender. So this is it for this deck. So tune in for the next one, which is much more fun. it's Simic deck, but it's much more fun, and I'll get into that in the next deck tech. Thanks for watching.